Okay, so now we're going to have Hallie do the introduction of the speaker. Okay, so now we're going to have Hallie do the introduction of the speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon, Halif. Welcome.
I've been tasked with the privilege to introduce our speaker this evening. Dr. King has bachelor degrees in theology and business administration from the University of the Southern Caribbean, a master's degree in counseling psychology from Andrews University, Michigan, and a PhD from Wayne State University. Dr. King served as CEO of Professional Outreach, Counseling Services Adjunct Faculty of Wayne State University, Eastern Michigan University, the University of Detroit, and Ashland University. Currently, he is the clinical director of a large Midwestern neuropsychological program for brain-injured patients. Dr. King has traveled to 5 continents and has presented to multiple audiences around the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. King.
Amen. Job well done, Ali. Very good.
So I want to introduce to you my colleague, Dr. Court. Dr. Court is one of my mentors, someone that I hold in very high esteem. Dr. Court is also a graduate of Wayne State University. And I'm going to ask Dr. Court to tell us a little bit more about his accomplishment. I know that he's a very humble person, but I am still going to request that Dr. Court tell us a little about himself as we launch into this exciting program.
That is a very hard thing to do, talk about oneself. Anyhow, for what is relevant today, I am a Guyanese, born and schooled up to high school in Guyana. And then, are you hearing me? What is relevant today?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I also attended Caribbean Union College, which is University of Southern Caribbean. I'm a graduate of that, and I'm a graduate of Northern Caribbean University in Jamaica. And then I did a master's in public health at Loma Linda University. And then I went on to the same school Dr. King graduated from, that is Wayne State University, where I got a PhD. I am now a professor of sociology at Athens State University. I've done some other work in other universities. I've done research in Africa. I used to go to Zimbabwe, Swaziland, and South Africa and do research. And that was a few years ago, about 7 years running every summer. But now I'm settled at Athens State University, and I am married to, I have one wife and 2 grown children, 2 adult sons and 3 grandkids. So I'm a granddad. Okay.
Very well. Thanks, Dr. Court. Thanks for that introduction. So we we are looking at this very interesting topic, right? He is always right. She is never wrong. Why the drama? So he is always right and she is never wrong. Why the drama? So we're talking about drama or conflict in relationships. And I was pleased when Dr. Court agreed to be co-presenter with me, because as a sociologist, he is adding a different and a wider dimension to our conversation for today. And so the first thing I want to do, or we want to do, is show the biblical basis for conflict. What is the genesis of all of this? So I'm reading from the book of Genesis, and I've used this before in my previous discussions with you. So Genesis chapter 3, I'm just going to read a few verses, 11 to 13. Genesis 3, 11 to 13, and then 16. And then, so this is just to show the biblical basis, which we already know. And he said, this is God speaking, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" The man said, "The woman you put here with me, well, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it." Then the Lord said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me and I ate it." To the woman he said, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." And then in verse 17 he says to Adam, "Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life." Dr. Court, what are your thoughts on the reading so far?
Well, Adam, like me, like to blame other people for what happens. Always to find an excuse. Oh, it's not me, not my fault. And it's your fault or his fault or her fault. And we can always find a reason to blame the other person. And other people don't take kindly to that sometimes. Why are you blaming me? You were neglectful, or you did it. You did this or that. And so what you have there is conflict. And that's how I see it. We as men like to do that. So I'm not beating up on men, you know, because I'm a man.
So we don't know exactly how things happened before this issue became problematic, but we do know that after this deception, after this disobedience, after the fall, things became very bad between the man and the woman, right? Harsh words were exchanged. There was deception. Matter of fact, in this family, there was even drama. There was murder, right? In this first family, right? But what I found interesting was not just Dr. Court, that there was conflict between two people. It appears as though there was intra-conflict, like conflict within each of them. The unconscious took root, and there was blaming, there was shaming, there was revenge, and so on and so forth. So therein lies the origin of conflict between two persons, in this case between a man and a woman, and within two persons, in this case between Adam and Eve. And since then to now, I don't think it's gotten better. Matter of fact, it has gotten much, much worse. So that is their biblical springboard of conflict. And then from a biological standpoint, I wanna talk now about, so why the drama? You know, why can't we get along? Why is there so much drama? Well, I love to talk about the biology of people. And, you know, after working with the field of brain injury, it will be unjust if I didn't at least put my toe in the water and try to explain conflict from just a biological standpoint. So there is a clinic in California called the Amen Clinic. And what they do, they scan the brain of people, man and woman. And so they did a study in 2017. They actually scanned the brains of 46,034 people, male and female. And they wanted to see what were some of the differences. And what they found was really, really startling. They saw that just biologically, we are different. So Athaline is different from me just biologically. For instance, female brains are busier. And what that means is that females have this ability to use both parts of their brain, right? You know, we have the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. So females have this unique ability to use both parts of their brain. Matter of fact, that's why females are most times one step ahead of males in terms of planning and in terms of strategizing, is because of this unique ability to use both parts of their brain. They also found that the emotional centers of women, you know, the amygdala, that's where we have feelings of love and happiness and joy and hatred and jealousy. Whatever emotions we are feeling, those emotions are housed in the amygdala. And they realize that in women, the amygdala is more active than in men. So just biologically, women are very different from men. And that, to me, sets us up for the possibility of conflict. What do you think, Dr. Court? What comments do you have in terms of the female-male differences and potential for a conflict?
Well, I just wanted to say one thing as a follow-up to what I said and you said about Adam.
Yes.
If under females here within our hearing, you ladies, suppose your husband had said that about you. It's not my fault. The woman that thou gavest me, so he started to blame God. You gave her to me, God, and look at what she did. And then she was there being blamed, and she said, but you had your two eyes open. Why didn't you say, no, I don't want it? But no, you wanted it too. But why don't you own up that you want it? And so on, you know, and she's thinking to defend herself, as she should, or she would, you know, so that conflict, I think, was baked into us because we came from them. And so if they had that ability to, you know, for conflict, what about us? So we are different, males and females.
Absolutely. And you know, in terms of the biology also, how we were designed, right? Men have more neurons in their brain than women, but women have more connections, right? So men have more neurons in terms of number, but women are better at connecting those neurons. And even the verbal skills of women, because on an average, a female speaks about 35,000 words a day, right? And on an average, a male speaks about 12,000 words a day. right? And, women speak for rapport, and men speak for report, right? And you ask the guy how he's doing, he's like, fine, the day was good. That's it, he's done, right? You ask a woman, do you really want to know what she said? And she wore a pink dress, and that's the same pink dress that she wore the last time. I can't believe, so it's just some of the biological differences that we have that kind of sets us up for drama, if you please. Now, Dr. Court, you're a sociologist, and I'm sure you have some sociological perspective on just the basic for conflict between the two sexes.
I do. And first of all, before I go into that basis, let me give a definition of conflict from a sociological perspective. What the average sociologist would say. The average sociologist would say that conflict is a meeting of minds. And he wouldn't stop there. But before I give you the second half, you would ask now, when you say a meeting of minds, the two of us are quarreling. How is it that our minds have met? And I would say the meeting of minds in a conflictual, with a conflictual perspective, meeting against one another. For example, I tell my students, if two people decide that they're not going to speak to each other, is there communication? Yes, there is, because they're communicating to each other. I don't want to talk to you. And, you speak to that person is going to turn away. That's communication. So meeting of minds in a conflictual manner. Okay, now, sociologically, the conflict that we have as human beings, a lot of it arises out of what we call socialization. And socialization is nothing but the way we are trained to think and to act. We're trained from babyhood to adulthood. So when we become adults, then our training or our socialization is a part of us. Sociologists would tell you people walk around with their ancestors in their heads. What do they mean by that? I saw how to act as a husband because of my dad. I want you to hear me well. That's who I learned from how to be a husband. But where did he learn how to be a husband? From his dad or his society. And to the extent that society teaches us wrongly, then we grow up with ideas in our heads that are really bad for relationships. But we don't know that they're bad for relationships because that's how we were taught by our society. And we don't recognize that we were actually being taught all the time. So family is only one agent of socialization. There are other agents. And let me do this quickly. Religion is another agent of society. We interact in a religious way in our churches and even in our homes. Our parents give us religious teaching. But think about what religion has taught us about interaction, male-female interaction. And I'd like to go to 1 Peter chapter 3. And well, let me talk about female first, about males first. Let me talk about males first. Males are taught by their fathers and male figures how to be husbands and boyfriends. 1 Peter 3:7 says, talking about husbands, you husbands, you must behave yourself in a respectful manner towards your wife and bear with them because they're the weaker vessel. That's it. In other words, Peter is saying, well, listen, don't treat them too harsh. Remember that they are kind of, they're not fully strong sociologically or psychologically or even physically like us. So have pity on them. Could you imagine Peter saying that? Yes, he did. 1 Peter 3 and verse 7. So that was the essence of the husband's action or perspective or role to his wife. Thirdly, let me just take one more agent of socialization, the media. When I think about the media, I think about print media, the books we read, what we see on TV. How do husbands behave towards females? That's so, we're being socialized all the time. How do wives, and if we switch it around, how are they taught to behave? You know, and when you put all of this together, you see how we are created and made. Could I jump over to the females right now, or you got something to add, Dr.
Yeah,
King?
I am slightly offended by when you quoted Peter, because I'm trying to imagine myself as a female, and you citing Peter saying that the woman is sort of like the weaker vessel, so go easy on her. Isn't that demeaning to females?
Wait till I tell you what he told the husbands.
Okay.
What he
Okay.
told the wives, rather. That's what he told the husbands. Now, what did he tell the wives? And those of you who have your Bibles, you can open it and see if I'm making this up. Peter told the women in the church, he said, you wives, you must be, he didn't use the word subservient, but you must be committed. You know, you must be submissive. That's the word he used. You must submit yourself unto your own husbands. And you must be respectful to him. And he even said in verse 3, the women of old, this is how they show their beauty, by being submissive to their husbands. Their beauty was not in dressing up and plaiting of the hair and looking nice. No, their beauty was in subservience to their husbands. And even, Sarah called Abraham Lord, because she was so submissive that she was respectful. So to the extent, you women, you wives, that you can be submissive to your husband, that you can respect him, hold him on a pedestal, then you are a good wife. Whew. So that is what religion has been teaching us. Now, I'm a religious person, so I'm not at odds with religion. I'm not at odds in the content of it. I'm at odds in how it was put to us. There was no context to this. So women have a right to be offended by that, because there's really no context. Women, be submissive. Husbands, just remember that they're weak, and so try to treat them good and you'll be okay. And then what has that's the biblical socialization. What has our modern culture taught women to be? Submissive also. Men are always taught to dominate women. Our religion has also taught us that men are the leaders of the house, in the home. But what does that mean? You know, what the Bible tells us, the same Bible tells us that we must love our wives just like Christ loved the church. And because of that love, what did he do? He gave himself for it. So, you know, our church kind of emphasizes one aspect of husband's conduct to the detriment of the other.
So yeah, I can hardly.
So I just rubbed salt in the wound.
Yeah, yes, 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 because one has to take into consideration that the Bible was written within an Eastern context, right? And God had to interact based on the norms and mores of the people, right? He couldn't talk about submarines and jet planes because they didn't exist.
That's right.
So he had to approach them using their own cultural practices to be able to impart truth onto them. And I fear what we do today is that we extract the things that we can use to our advantage and use those things to control, for instance, women, right?
Yes.
Which explains why within the Adventist church, for instance, you have way more male leaders and pastors than female. In fact, some of us do not even believe in ordaining women, right?
That's right.
Because they are the weaker vessels. And
Yes.
so that when a woman tries to assert herself, therein forms the basic for conflict, because you are not supposed to assert yourself. You are not supposed to be a leader. You should stay in your place. And I think that's
right.
how we use the Bible to beat women over their head and to keep them in, quote unquote, their place.
That's right. And it is natural for women to object
Correct.
because they're under attack. They're under attack. And the Bible says these things and we don't put them in context.
Correct.
What you did a minute ago was put something in context.
Correct.
Because you said that Bible came out of an Eastern agrarian culture. Look at the begats in the early books, in Exodus, Leviticus, and so on. They do not mention women's names.
Correct.
And even in the New Testament, everything mentions things from a male perspective. The command that says, do unto others as you would have them do to you, what it really says is, those things that you would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. How do women come into this? It is just that Bible has been written from a male perspective. So the Bible doesn't teach where does headship end and bullying begin.
Correct.
And sometimes we as men see things melding into the other. So some of us men don't know that we are really bullying our wives instead of being a leader. A leader doesn't bully, but we don't know the difference because our church doesn't always explain the difference to us.
Correct. And let me just show how ridiculous our behaviors are, right? So I'm going to disguise this person, right? So I'm not going to use his real name. I'm not even going to use his name, right? So let's just say he's a teacher. This true story, right? His wife is a physician. And we were having a discussion. And I said to him, what happens if your child becomes ill and has to undergo a certain procedure? And they need to consult with both of you. And then one of you needs to have the final say in terms of what should happen. And I said to him, who should be the person given the final say? Keep in mind, he's a teacher and she's a physician. She's actually a pediatrician. You know what he said? He should be the one having the final say.
There you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Based on what? She is a specialist. This is her training. This is her lane. She should be the one given the final say. Perhaps you've only taken one class in biology, if any at all.
As if you passed it.
That's if you passed it. And this is what she spent her life doing. Shouldn't she be the one having the final say, but just based on the fact that she's a woman and you're a man, you should have a final say. How
But he would
crazy
say,
is that?
he would say that the Bible intimates that he is head of the home. You see?
Yeah,
And
which is a gross misuse of scriptures, right?
misuse of script. That's my point. That's my big point. And you know what I heard a pastor say? The reason why he objects to women's ordination? Because a man must be the priest of his home.
Correct.
Now, if the wife is ordained and she's pastor of the church and he's in the church, so his question to me, so what are you telling me, that in the church she's going to be boss over me? And I said, the pastor is not even trying to be boss. It's not lead. He is mixing up headship with bullying. See, the pastor is the leader of the church. He brings skills together. He channels the word of God to them in a context that they may build for the building up of the church. So this pastor was telling me that he cannot see a woman being pastor of a church, because he, as if he's a husband, he would have to listen to her on Sabbaths. So am I going to listen to her on Sabbath? And then when we go home, then she has to listen to me. I said, there you go again. She has to listen to me.
So
Problem. Conflict.
So we discussed the biblical basis of conflict. All right. I thank you for doing a masterful job in sort of presenting the sociological basis of conflict and drama, if you please, right? And
Socialization.
socialization.
Bad
Thank you.
socialization.
Yes. So I wanna touch now on one of the aspects in psychology as the basis for a conflict also, right? So all of us humans, right? We were born and programmed with a certain personality type. We didn't get a chance to choose. We didn't get a chance to choose whether I was going to be an introvert or an extrovert. You did not get a chance to choose. This is how you were designed by the maker. We all come with a personality type. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't adjust or we can't modify, but at our core level, we come with a certain personality type. So I want to talk about 5 personality types, and I'm sure there are many more, but these are the 5 main ones. And it's important for me and for you to understand what type of personality I have or you have, so that when we come into a relationship, we know what we are bringing, right? So a good way to remember these 5 personality types is by using this acronym CANOE, right? CANOE, CANOE, right? So the first one, C, CANOE, is the conscientious personality type. This is the type of person who pays attention to details. They spend time preparing. There are some people that just the way they are. They are very organized. They're always prepared for a meeting. They do not believe in last minute rushing and going. It's just their personality type. So someone who is low in conscientiousness, right, does not like structure, makes mess. They'll take off the clothes and leave the clothes on the floor. They use the toilet and leave the toilet seat up, and stuff splash all over the bathroom, and it doesn't bother them at all, right? They are low in conscientiousness. So that's the first personality type, conscientiousness. Then the second one is neuroticism, right? Well, sorry, agreeableness. I want to stay in order. So we have conscientiousness, then we have agreeableness. The person with the agreeable personality type, they're very kind, very affectionate. And you know people like those, right? Very kind, they really care about others. And then those who are low in agreeableness, they don't care. It's like if you have two kids, Dr. Court, and I know that you have two sons, and I happen to know both of them. Both of them are excellent young men. I'm not going to say which one I'm talking about, but one of them, one of your sons, he cares about the whole universe. If something happens over here, he spends time thinking about, oh my gosh, I wonder how that person is doing, and so on and so forth. And your other son is like, okay, well, we just got to move on, right? We just got to move on. They just came programmed with different personality types. It's how we were created. And it's important for us to understand. I don't know if you want to make a comment there, Dr.
Yes, I do. Let me jump in there. Since you started talking about my sons, I know them well too. When this one, who is like that Dr. King described, wanted, when he was going into college, he wanted to do social work. I sat him down. I said, listen, that's not the best thing for you. And I'll tell you why. You are a bleeding heart. You want to solve the problems of the world. If people come to you and you see need, you're going to sit up in the night thinking, how can I help that person? You are not going to be able to leave the need at work and go home to your family and be a family man and a husband and a father until next morning. I discouraged him, and he kind of listened to me because of how he was trained. And I'm glad he did, because he turned out to be a sociologist like me. Good. So he can do his research, and he's doing research on people that are far away in Africa. So this distance, you know.
Exactly.
So because I knew about his personality type, I was able to guide him. And he was very young then.
Exactly. A great illustration. So we're talking about the 5 personality types, right? Conscientiousness, agreeableness, that's a CA, and then the N, neuroticism, right? These are people, they're just sad and moody and just melancholy. They worry about every single thing on the planet. Lots of drama. If the store is not open at 8 o'clock, it's a meltdown, right? That is just their personality type, right? Neuroticism, right? So that's CANO. This is the O now, not a personality type. And this speaks to openness, right? These are people, they like to use their imagination, right? They're very insightful. They're open-minded. They're curious about the world, about what's going on around them, right? That's the openness. And then the last one of the 5 is extroversion. And most of us know what that personality type looks like. These are people, they're full of energy. They're outgoing, right? They like being around the people, and they're always bubbly, and they need people as their stimulants, right? Now, it's important for us to know what is our personality type, because if we don't know, just merely meshing up with the wrong personality type can cause a lot of problems and a lot of drama. Any comments, Dr. Court?
Sure, let me jump in there again.
Yes.
Let me pull what I call the take home from all that you just said. Here are 2 people, male, female, like some of these young people in what's the name of the church?
Longdenville,
listening to us. Maybe in a relationship, maybe it's becoming serious. You know, like Dr. King started by saying, these personality types, one, the person didn't have a choice. And number 2, these are the dominant ones. Not that the person has only this one, but Correct. That is the dominant one. You know, it could be any one of these 5 or even some more. When you meet up with a person who is so different to you, you might like him because he is an extrovert. Okay, but he is not going to change. You know, think about as a woman.
I really want you to emphasize that what you just said, right? The person is not going to change.
But people get married thinking that I'm going to change that part of him, and then the other nice parts I'm going to keep. So he will be a nice person just with that I'll remove. Or the person is an introvert. I'm going to make her talk some more. When she spends a year or so with me, by the time she is done with a year with me, because I talk a lot, she's going to talk a lot. No. You've got to know that this is the person I'm marrying or I have married, and this is what I get. You got to play with the hand you're dealt. Well, that's a harsh way of putting it. But what I'm saying is also, you may know who you are, but you may not have the training or the experience to know what personality type the other party is. How would you get to know this, Dr. King?
Excellent, excellent, excellent question. That is one of the most difficult questions that someone can ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because people wear disguises constantly. When, because if I tell you who I am or what I'm like, will you still accept me? If I tell you that I'm a thief, are you going to invite me into your house? I bet you won't, right? So we all kind of put on our cloaks, right? Like cloak and dagger. And it's very, very hard to know. Is this person for real or is this person faking it? It's very, very hard to tell. And some people are very good at playing everything very close.
Disguising, yes. I'll tell you what we call it in sociology, but I would say that they've got to see before they get married, they got to do two things. One, they have to talk. Not only romantic talk. Romantic talk is nice. Don't get me wrong. It's necessary and it's nice. But you've got to sit down and talk about deep things. How this person likes to spend money. What does he want or she want in life? Where do you think you want to be in the next 10 years? And stuff like that. Maybe the only way they can see that is not by themselves. Maybe they'll need to see a counselor like you. I mean, you're not advertising here for anything.
No, I'm not. but
I'm very serious.
Yes. And when we get down to the end, we will talk about some of those solutions, right?
Yes, but I'm just throwing it in here.
You're absolutely right. So we spoke about, the basis for a conflict, right? Biblical socialization. We spoke about personality type. And then there's another variable that has to be thrown into this mix. And, we're now beginning to kind of understand why there's so much drama, right? Mm-hmm. Then in addition to our personality type, we have also to consider our attachment type. What do I mean by that, right? As children, we try to attach to our caregivers. It's natural, right? You see a calf walking behind the mother. You see a mother or a father holding a baby, right? That's a form of attaching. We don't get to choose how we become attached to our caregivers. We don't get to choose because we're innocent and we're babies. And it's whatever they give to us, that is what happens to us. Mm-hmm. So that's how we develop our attachment types. I want to quickly talk about 4 attachment types, right? That we're subject to. The first one is the fearful avoidant attachment. Fearful avoidant. So these are people, and you've seen them, they're afraid of being too close to someone, but at the same time, they're afraid of being too distant from someone, right? So this is like a lose-lose situation. These type of people, they tend to be mixed, or they tend to be unpredictable in their mood, right? One time they love you, the next minute they hate you. because that is how they were raised, and that's how they attach or try to attach to their primary caregiver. So that's the fearful avoidant. Then we have the anxious preoccupied attachment type. So these are people, they're frequently looking to their partner to rescue them. You know, although they have a sense of security, but they find their security by clinging to their partners. Like how a baby will cling to its mother or father. And if that caregiver steps out of the room, that child may have a total meltdown. And if they don't learn how to attach properly, they take that stuff into adulthood, right? So that's the anxious preoccupied type. Then we
let me just jump in before you go to the
Yes.
food. You know, I know a couple, and they've been married for about 30 years. And she is a sweet lady, but she calls him for everything.
Correct.
If she goes to close the back door and it's not closing properly, she gets on the phone. Honey, the door is not closing good. You know, I don't know what to do. Well, look and see if there's anything. There may be a little piece of cloth underneath, something stuck at the door. And if you look, it's not a big mechanical job. You know, the TV is not turning on properly. I don't know. I want to listen to this program. Well, try the two controls and see. But no, how long? And poor guy, but he's a very patient guy. You know, he loves that woman to death. And I'm saying, I prefer you to me.
So actually that is a great combination, right? In terms of he got himself involved with someone that actually he is compatible with. And
yeah, because he likes it. But suppose he was like me.
Exactly. And that's why it's important for us to understand our attachment style before we try to attach to someone else, right? So that's the anxious preoccupied.
Yeah.
Then number 3 is the dismissive avoidant type. These are people that have the tendency to be emotionally distant, right? And they don't cry, they don't laugh, they don't become emotionally involved at all. And quite often you see children of alcoholics or children who had abusive parents develop this type of attachment style because they know if they attach to that type of parent, their life will be a living hell, right? And so they learn how to be dismissive and to be avoidant, right? So that's the dismissive avoidant type, right? So if you have someone who's looking for love and who's looking for emotional support and they get into a relationship with that type of person, you already know how it's going to go.
Conflict.
You already know how it's going to go. You already know, right? And then the last one is the secure attachment, right? And this is the person who tends to be real, who tends to be open, who sometimes is independent, but yet loving and sharing, right? So those are the 4 attachment types, right? We have fearful avoidant, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, and then secure. So those are the 4 attachment styles that we generally come with. Now, there is no one person who fits perfectly into any one of these, right?
That's important.
Yes, people have a combination, right? They have a combination. And a lot of these are on a sort of a continuum, right? But one of the problems is that when we step into people's lives, like as you said, we already know what type of personality they have or what type of attachment, because some of these we can see it a mile away. We can see this a mile away, but we're so much in love. Oh, look at her figure. Oh, he has a great voice. Oh, he's so handsome. And like as you said, we feel that, well, we can take control of this part, and this bad part here, we can fix it. Give us a year or two. Give us a year or two, and then we will kind of baptize you and bring you over.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't. It does not work. It does not work at all. So I just want us now to jump into some solutions, right, that we can kind of talk about, and then we can open it up for our questions.
Yes, please.
Because believe it or not,
Okay.
it's 6:20. We started at 5:30, almost an hour already. So solution. I'd like you to comment on some of these. Be aware of what you like and what you don't like. What are your thoughts about that?
People don't think or don't recognize that what you like and what you don't like or what you can't stand, you yourself might not change. And let me put it this way. It may be something that looks simple, but after time, like, I don't know. So let me give you a simple one. When I brush my teeth, I have to knock all the water out of that toothbrush right out before I put it up to stand up. Now, if I have a wife who finished brushing her teeth and put up the thing with all the water inside, and after a week, it doesn't smell good, but she's still using it, I don't want to kiss her no more.
And that's a very simple thing, right?
It's very simple.
That's a very simple thing.
Yes, but that could cause a lot of conflict because I may not want to tell her, I may not know how to tell her, or if I tell her, she might say, well, what's the difference? It's my toothbrush. So
Correct. What does that have to do with you?
what does that have to do with you? Yes.
So you need to know how much you can tolerate.
That's right.
You need to know how much you can tolerate. And number two, don't be swayed by external only. And then I have here, trust me, the curves will go away over time.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about don't be swayed by external only?
Well, I always think that God has designed us so that when we're young, we're good looking. I used to be very good looking.
Well, you still are, right?
Trust me, I used to be good. I had hair and all
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
I used to, I didn't have this gray and all that. I used to be good looking.
Yeah.
But now I've been married for a good few years. Suppose my wife was expecting me to look the same way. What would happen to me now?
Yep.
I'd be in deep trouble.
That's right. That's right.
But when we're young, we don't look ahead. We don't know the times and people change. And I think it's of God's mercies that we change too.
Exactly.
That's the only thing that saves some of us.
Exactly.
But there are some people who remain looking young, like you.
Yes.
I'm serious. Since I knew him, he was looking like that, and that's a long time.
So number three, right? Discuss beliefs and attitudes early in relationship. Discuss your likes and your beliefs and whatever it is very early in, before cement starts to harden.
I had touched on that, but you said we touched this in where we were wrapping up, when we were wrapping up now.
Yeah.
So I'll make the point again. Young people have to understand that marriage is a serious one. And you don't go into it lightly, but you have to sit down when your boyfriend and girlfriend sit down and talk about serious things about life. That's how you get to know the other person. And talk and listen to what he has to say. So there is space for a lot of talk. People only like to talk about the lovey-dovey things and so on, which is okay. You'll have years for that afterwards. But it is very important to talk, discuss important things.
Exactly. And number 4, right? Perfection does not exist on this earth. It doesn't exist. You're not going to find the perfect person. It's just not going to happen. I mean, that is something. Go ahead.
Because you're not perfect either.
I was about to say that. Exactly.
None of us is perfect.
Exactly. Exactly.
But still, in our imperfection, there's some things we can't stand. You know,
Correct.
There's some things we cannot live with.
Correct. And it's important to know that.
To know what are those things.
Yes. 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 Be willing to compromise.
Yes.
Be willing to compromise.
Compromising is necessary. Like an older guy told me, he said, in this marriage thing, he calls me Malcolm. Malcolm, in this marriage thing, you got 2 choices. You could either be happy or you could be right. You know what he meant? You know, we men like to know that we're always right. And if we are not right, then our wives must still accept that, oh yeah, you're right, whereas we're not right. And you could ram it down her throat that, you know, this is where we to go, this is where we're supposed to go, and I'm right. Or you could be happy. There are sometimes you got to be willing to compromise, and a wife will say certain things that sometimes, you know, like I tell people, I have to live in this house. And I've been living in this house for a long time and I'm happy. And I've had to compromise a lot of stuff, you know, not the deep things, you know, that have to do with morals and so on. But there are little things which I could do without. I compromise. Here I am, I'm happy.
Sure. And that is a good segue into the next one, right? Know what and when to speak. You don't have to address every issue.
Yes.
Some things you just let them go.
And it is important to understand that you've got to be able to dismiss the issue rather than the person.
Correct.
You know, in other words, your boyfriend makes a point and it doesn't make a lot of sense. You can either, you know, roll your eyes and just look at him as though he is nonsense.
Or talk to the hand, right? Just talk to the hand.
Yes. Or you can say, sweetheart, do you think we need to discuss that now? You know, look, another time. He'll forget about it because it didn't make sense in the first place. You know, you've got to find a way to dismiss the point or the idea rather than the person. Because if people feel that they are dismissed all the time, they will take umbrage to it. They will be disgusted and they will say he or she doesn't really listen to me. And you don't want that.
Exactly. Great point. And then the last one is to seek professional help.
Yeah, well.
Okay, second to last one. Sorry. Yes, there's one more.
Yes, we have know your limit. Well, we talked a little bit about that.
Yes.
Know your limits.
Yes. And you spoke to that. Know what you can take
and what you can.
And what you cannot take. And as you step into this thing, if you know you can't take it, don't go in.
Don't go in.
Do not.
Because it's not going to last.
Exactly. And then, you know, seeking professional help, you know, our church is sort of lacking in terms of providing professional resources. And I wish we could do a better job. I know we can do a better job in terms of providing professional assistance. I think it will alleviate a lot of the conflicts and a lot of their problems.
But we have to be taught also to seek it, because I think that we are afraid of laying our souls bare to somebody else. But then people, like in your profession, they're trained for this. You're not the first that's going to come and lay your soul bare to them, and you're not the last. And you've got to understand that if they're real professionals, it's like they're treating you, you are somebody who need help. It's like, you know, we don't go and take our clothes off in front of any and everybody. We could take our clothes off in front of the doctor, because we know, or we should know, that he or she is a professional, and to him, you are a patient. And doctors are trained to not see you, but to see a patient. And I don't want to go more into that.
Your point well taken. And do you want to address the last one?
Yes, let me address this.
Yes.
Definitely. We started talking about conflicts. And this is a sociological point, defining the situation. Now, when I talk about definition of the situation, you know, there is what we call a maxim in sociology. And I got to teach. Let me teach a little bit here. In sociology, there's a maxim that says situations defined as real are real in their consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly. If, you know, I like in Detroit, the garage was behind the house. So you drive in and you go behind the house, you park the car, and then you walk back to the front door. And sometimes it's dark. And I tell my students, just imagine, I went and I parked the car, I shut the car, now I'm going to my front door. And somebody starts coming towards me with their hands open like that, running towards me. What do you think what will I do? One young lady said, if I had an umbrella, I'd stick him in his eye. I said, okay. Suppose that was a long lost cousin that you hadn't seen for 10 years. She said, well, why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he say, cousin, I am so and so? I said, you would stick him in the eye because you define the situation as I'm in danger. I better defend myself. Otherwise, this person is coming to kill me. The consequence of that is that he'll lose an eye. So you define the situation as conflict or danger, and because of that, he will lose an eye. But you might have been totally wrong. But the consequences, according to how you define the situation. Let's define this in conflict now. I'm saying that it is good for couples to sit down and talk before they get married and define the situation of conflict as, listen, you have come from wherever, and I have come from over there. We have been raised in different families. We've been exposed to different things. And we are, as thinking adults, likely to have misunderstanding and not agree. Can we agree to disagree? Or can we concede that there are times when we are two thinking people, but we would not agree on certain points? If you can enter into a serious relationship with that understanding, then you will have defined the situation of conflict as something that is normal. Conflict is normal, but it's how you deal with it that deals a death blow to a relationship. Are you with me? I know I can't see you shaking your heads.
Point
But
well
I think
made.
you're grasping what I'm saying. So if you can sit down and decide, well, listen, sweetheart, there are sometimes I won't agree with you, and I know you won't agree with me. But listen, we still got to carry on this relationship, and I will still love you if you disagree with me, and I hope you still love me if I disagree with you. And we still got to live. And, you know, we define that situation. Then when we disagree, we could say, well, you know what? Let us disagree. Let us agree to disagree on that point. Okay, we can move on.
Point well made.
I took a long time with that.
No, and I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did, because those are, you know, there are some points that cannot be hurried. I wanna close with a comment or a statement or saying from Carl Jung. He's a psychologist. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Say it one more time, right? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So until we come to grips with who we are, our attachment style, and the fact that we bring our baggage and our suitcases with us, until we are aware of what we are bringing, and until we can make this stuff conscious, our lives are going to be a living mess, and we will call it fate, or we'll just blame the other person.
Yes.
So it's 6:36. We've been going at this for about an hour and 5 minutes.
Yes.
And Kathleen, I am going to ask you to take over. There's a lot of questions in the chat. There's about 25 questions in the chat. There's no way we can answer all of those questions, but Kathleen, you can curate those questions and you can read them to us, and we'll respond as best as we can.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's see what the first one is. Abigail hand has been up for a while, so let's take Abigail. Abigail is in the room. Abigail.
Thank you so much. My hands hurt now.
Sorry, Abigail.
Okay, so just to touch a bit on what you all would have spoken about earlier on, about how do you know if this person is just putting on or if that's who they really are. And I know that Dr. King would have touched on that and say sometimes you really can't say. Now, people that, let's say these two persons are married, right? And things are going good and these are their personality types, they could cope with it. And later on, because brother Dr. Kaur, right,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You said if it is that you're seeing certain things, like we were talking about the dismissal part, then don't go into the relationship. But what about if these two persons have been married for years and people do change over the course of years? And as they get older, you realize that your spouse just become the type who is very dismissal. He or she isn't really, they're not really paying attention to what you have to say, or from the time you start out, they just dismiss you kind of thing. These persons are already in the marriage. So then how do they deal with that? One. And two, I believe that, well, for me, what I would tell the young people now is that when you're courting, you need to take note of how your spouse moves, not only with their parents, but how they move around their peers. Create scenarios for them to get upset and see how they deal with it. I'm not saying to provoke them every minute, but we need to do in this day and age, you need to see all of that.
Maybe promote them too.
Because once you say, I do, that is it.
Yeah, so
you need to see all of that.
Yeah, excellent question. And so I think your question is, if you already in it, we have a saying in Guyana, see if I can remember to say it in the colloquial language, right? The bow done gone the fowls, he can't turn back, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, you have a decision to make, right? Yeah, so I mean, not you, but the person, right? So we cannot tell the person obviously what to do, but we can give the person options, right? So
Yes.
if you're already in it, one option could be to stay in it. This is your decision. You made a choice. Stay in it if you can tolerate it, right? So that's one option, right? Another option is if you stay in it, you may become a victim of domestic violence or even death. So that in that scenario, the thing to do will be to get out of it or to distance yourself from it. Now, I know our church does not preach divorce and does not condone divorce, and neither am I supporting that. But what I am saying is that if it's a really bad situation where you're going to be injured, and if you have kids and your kids are going to be injured, then make a wise decision and get professional help and explore your options rather than just sitting there and being beaten into a pulp. So those are options I usually present.
The point I would have made is the one you just touched on. When people have gotten married, it doesn't mean that they have achieved and they must sit back and don't do anything about the richness of their marriage. It's like when you buy a car, you know, there comes a time when you have to take it to the mechanic because things get worn out. And I think that this is where marriage counselors come in. Marriage counselors are not just for premarital counseling, but they are there to help you. That person may not know that he or she has changed. And it takes a helper, another person, for that person to talk with the two of you separately and together, and then say, well, look, you know, I see that you used to be so and so and so 25 years ago. Now you're doing this and that. And your spouse is real frustrated and so on and so forth, and take it from there. So one of the solutions is to seek help.
Absolutely.
All
Athlete,
right.
do you have another question for us?
So much. Yes, I would like Farrell Corbin to ask your question, please. Go right ahead and ask your question because that person has a two-part question.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Farrell Corbin. You can unmute.
And by the way, you guys have done an excellent job in terms of staying muted. This is like one of the presentations that we've had where there weren't a lot of interruptions. So thank you for taking the initiative and staying muted. But if you want to read a question or ask a question, Kathleen can unmute you or give you the option of being unmuted.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. A friend of mine, I'm calling from Canada. Call a friend of mine and told me about it. Anyway, the question is the two, and then I had another question after. The two-part question is one, that might be the simpler part. If could somebody have a double personality trait? That is the first part of the two-part question. And the second part of it is could a personality change midstream? Well, the first question, the statement you made to the other girl's question partially answered that.
Okay, so just so that you know, so no one has just one personality type, right? It's usually on a continuum, right? So we have traits, but one trait is sometimes dominant.
Okay.
Right, so one trait could be dominant and the others could be less dominant, right?
Okay,
so the answer is yes. The second thing is that you cannot change your personality. What you can change your behaviors, right? So for instance, if someone is an extrovert, you know, this is someone who is outgoing and they're the life of the party, right? They can not be the life of the party, and they cannot go to every concert, and they cannot have to sit up in front or always be on the pulpit. So they can change their behavior, but it doesn't mean that they're changing their personality type, because your personality type is what has been given to you. But you can modify your behavior, you can compensate, and there are other things that you can do.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, which will be the last one. You're talking about, the conflict and blaming and different things. What about if there's a person, either one in the relationship or the marriage, doesn't want to accept responsibility, and everything they blame somebody, and they're trying to talk and they're shutting you off?
Well, go back to the Garden of Eden, right? That's why I read Genesis 3, right? that is exactly where it started. And that scenario that you just mentioned, it plays itself out on a regular basis in everyday life. And especially if it's been going on over time, sometimes you have to seek professional help, not necessarily for the person, but for you, right? Because remember, it's hard to change people. So sometimes the professional help is for you to see how much you can tolerate. And you may not be able to tolerate that type of behavior forever. And then you exercise your options. And so that would be my advice to such a person.
That was a psychological question, so that's why I let Dr. King answer
That's
that. He's a
fine, yeah,
psychologist.
because you see those situations play out all the time. Again, none of us is perfect, and it's hard to do self-reflection and introspection. It's very, you know how hard it is to say, yeah, I was a jerk. I did not handle that right. Especially for men, because men have, not all men, but some men have very strong ego, right? Yeah. And they do not like to be corrected. And again, it comes back to that, I'm always right and you're always wrong. So who are you to tell me what to do and what not to do?
Plus, I'm the head of this household anyhow.
That's right. That's right. So when you find yourself in that situation, you can hit your head against the wall and see what happens, or you can seek professional help to discover how much can you tolerate, how much can you take, and what options you need to exercise.
All right. Thank you so much. As there's a follow-up comment. When you say explore your options, and let's say, for example, you're speaking to individuals who have been married, what exactly are you saying?
Explore your options. You can decide do you want to stay and bear it, right? Do you want to change? Do you want to change and modify your behavior and act differently? Or do you want to leave? There's a wide range of options that are possible. And with a professional, the professional is not going to tell you what to do. But if you choose option A, these are some of the consequences. If you choose option B, these are some of the consequences. If you choose option C, these are some of the consequences. Now, which one of those consequences are you willing to live with?
Okay, but then there's another question that is coming from me with that one. With that being the case, we usually look at divorce or separation on the grounds of infidelity. If it's not a case of infidelity and I choose an option to leave, what then?
No,
let me ask a question on top of that. Suppose it's a woman who is on the receiving end of physical abuse. Then how do you see the option of terminating the marriage? I'm throwing the question back to you, not that I mean that you must answer it, but I mean that it is time for us to start thinking about those things. And if you want to say it's outside the box, it's not outside of the box for me anymore. I've processed this for years, but that is a situation, and there are others, but that is a situation where people in my position, and I'm sure Dr. King too would tell you, those are common sense reasons for terminating a marriage.
Okay, and I agree with that. I agree with that. But I was just looking at.
You want to make a comment on that?
Those
Yeah. So and just to be clear, right? And in the writings of Paul, right, he's very, very clear that if you cannot get along with someone, that separation is an option, right? It's very, very clear about that. What people do is that they use divorce for an excuse to do whatever. So this person is snoring, I can't live with this person, I gotta go, right? This person is not giving me enough money, I can't live with this person, I gotta go, right? And that's why those questions were posed to Jesus when Jesus had to cite Moses in terms of divorce. And Jesus said, it's because of the hardness of your heart that I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you right now. Put that to the side. I want to go back to what Dr. Court just said. If you're in a situation whereby you were being pummeled, you're being abused physically and verbally, and if you have children also in that setting, you are doing yourself more harm than remaining in that union. And also, you are harming those children, and they're going to take whatever transpires into the next generation. So you have an obligation. You have an obligation to explore your options and seek help. Look at the consequences and choose the one that will result in your safety and your children's safety.
Mm-hmm. That includes divorce.
Absolutely. Choose the option that will result in your safety and your children's safety.
All right. There's another question in the chat. With no disrespect intended, with respect to women ordination, I have no problem with a woman being a preacher or a paid minister. But if the woman becomes an ordained minister, then she could be entitled to run for president of the World Church of the Seventh-day Adventists. Take on that.
So Ellen White is credited with being one of the founding members of the Seventh-day Adventist religion. We don't have a problem with that, right? Why would we have a problem if a woman becomes the president of the worldwide Seventh-day Adventist Church? Like, why would that be an issue? Like, what discredits her from assuming that role? The only thing is her gender.
And we don't want to say that out front. And I've dealt with this, in terms of answering questions on this. We don't want to say that out front. So we come around in a big circle and come back to the same place that we started because she is a woman.
I mean, that would be the only reason, right? Gender,
yes.
That would be the only reason. Because certainly it can be because she lacks the qualification. It can be because she lacks the spirituality. It can be because she lacks the knowledge. Like, what excludes her? The only thing that excludes her is her gender.
Then I hear you. I hear your answer from both of you, both doctors. But the question can arise. Yes, Ellen White was inspired, but she was never an ordained minister. She was never a president. Yeah, so you can have that counter question. How do you deal with that? How do you answer that?
Well, she was bigger than any ordained minister. She was bigger than any president. Just look at her contribution towards Adventism. I don't know of any one minister or any president or all presidents combined who have made a contribution that she has made to Adventism. I don't know.
As a matter of fact, she had influence over at least a lot of influence over one GC president, in her time. When Dr. King says she was very powerful.
Yeah, so the only thing that precludes a woman from assuming certain positions are the prejudiced nature of men. men are, and not all men feel that way, but there are some ministers who will tell you, if a woman becomes an ordained minister, they will not work with her. They will not support her. They will have nothing to do with her because she's an ordained minister. And the only reason why they're saying that is because she's female. That's it. And I don't know what it's based on.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Court and Dr. King. I think those are all the questions. If there's anyone with one last burning question, you can go right ahead and ask. If you have one last burning question, anyone in the room, you can go right ahead and answer. If not, then we will go straight to our closing off session.
And
Are you hearing me?
I want to thank you, Atheline, for insisting that we do this. And I want to thank Frank and everyone else who's made a contribution. I want to thank Dr. Court for agreeing to be co-host at a short moment's notice. And thanks to all of you. And I hope that what we have said will be of benefit to you, if not you directly, but people within your circle.
I want to thank you too for having me here. You just made me feel special. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all too for coming. Congratulations. And we are grateful for your presence, for your knowledge shared. And I know that God is going to continue to bless and use you all in different capacities at different times. Continue to be a blessing in every regard. We now have our vote of thanks brought to us by Israel and Alini. Israel and Alini, it's your turn.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This evening, I was granted the opportunity to